Hello, welcome to the Satisfied Woman podcast. I'm your host, Alanna Kaivalya. This podcast is dedicated to helping women lean into their femininity and rediscover the power of their feminine gifts. We take a look at what it means to be a modern woman and how we can live a satisfied life on our own terms. Visit the hub at thesatisfiedwoman.com. Now, this is only my second podcast in this show, and I'm so excited to be back. If you missed the first podcast where I go through a little bit more about who I am and what this podcast is about, make sure that you go back and listen to the first episode. Otherwise, here we are, podcast number 2, and I'm ready to deep dive into what it means to be a satisfied woman. I was blown away when I looked up the actual definition of satisfaction. Let me give it to you. Satisfaction is the pleasure derived from the fulfillment of one's wishes or needs. I'm going to repeat that because this is exactly what we want as feminine women. Ready? Satisfaction is the pleasure derived from the fulfillment of one's wishes or needs. Hearing that definition, honestly, as a feminine woman, makes me feel incredibly light and at ease on the inside. Let's dive a little bit more into some of the components of that definition so we truly understand what satisfaction is and why it's so important for the feminine woman. So satisfaction is the pleasure derived from the fulfillment of one's wishes or needs. Let's talk about pleasure. Pleasure is inherently feminine. The feminine woman in her fullness is able to experience pleasure on an internal level and run that pleasure through her body so that others around her can receive it and experience pleasure and joy as well. Pleasure, when a feminine woman is feeling it, is contagious. So it actually benefits everybody. Pleasure is the freedom to feel joy in one's body and heart. We must feel safe and secure in order to do this. Now, I understand what it means to be a feminine woman in this modern world. I get it. I know that women anywhere may not have the conditions of safety and security. I understand that. I've been there myself, and I know that the world that we live in is not easy. So it is my absolute hope that as a woman listening to this podcast, that you can create a world for yourself that is safe and secure. And I do have some ideas on how to create that kind of world in my book, and also in this podcast. I will be sharing them, but I just wanted to make a note that I understand safety and security can be hard to come by, and that I am sympathetic to that. My wish is that we all feel safe and secure. Safety and security is what will lead to us having the ability to feel a sense of pleasure when our wishes and needs are fulfilled. We won't be able to feel pleasure if we don't have that safety and security. So it's a bit of a chicken or the egg question here with this. However, let's try to focus on the pleasure and the moments that we can feel pleasure, the moments that we feel alive with that sense of joy that comes from within us, so that when we feel it, others do too. So, pleasure is the freedom to feel joy in one's body and heart. Now let's dissect the next word in our definition here, fulfillment. Fulfillment is different than success. Now, in my first podcast, I talked a little bit about success and how it's different than satisfaction. Success is a very masculine term. Success implies hierarchy. Success implies doing it yourself, that it's your success over someone else's. You might have to climb over someone to get your success and push theirs down or away. Success is very rarely a team effort. And in fact, success in our current patriarchy is most valued when we fight for it ourselves. And I definitely discovered this when I created and ran my own business, which I sold last year because it just wasn't satisfying me. We want satisfaction as women. So success is a little different. Success is hierarchical. It's pushing other people's wants, needs, or desires down in order to get our own, and it's often DIY. Whereas fulfillment is a feeling of happiness or contentment that is derived from having one's needs met. Fulfillment is a feeling. Success is an achievement. So when we feel happy and content, we are fulfilled. And that happens when we have our needs met. Now, this is the last part of that definition of satisfaction, which, remember, satisfaction is the pleasure derived from the fulfillment of one's wishes or needs. Let's talk about wishes and needs. One is not more important than the other. Okay, wishes and needs are both equally as important, but one can be lived without. Needs we have to have, and wishes we would like to have. Wishes are going to bring us that sense of joy and excitement and nourishment in life, whereas needs are going to bring us that sense of safety and security. Now, all of those things are required in order for us to have a fulfilling, fully expressed, and healthy life. So I would never want anyone to repress their wishes or their needs. They're both equally valuable. And remember, that's where satisfaction comes from. Satisfaction is the fulfillment, is the pleasure derived from the fulfillment of one's wishes and needs. Now, I've done a lot of research over the past couple of decades, and in earning my Ph.D. and even in writing the book, The Way of the Satisfied Woman. And a lot of that research centers not just on masculinity and femininity and how to be a fully embodied feminine woman in the modern world, but the crux of it really is our ability to get our needs met. When we have our needs met, not just as feminine women, but as humans, we then have the ability to express ourselves fully and live a fully manifested life. So getting our needs met, the importance of that cannot be underestimated. And I can't, in my own life and experience, name a woman who hasn't subjugated her own needs for that of others. It happens with the masculine, but less. It's not a masculine trait. It's something that the feminine, in its oppression, repression, or distortion, will do when it doesn't feel safe, when it feels like it needs to overdo something to give itself away. But no one ends up fulfilled, and no one certainly ends up satisfied in that state. So if there's one thing maybe that you take away from this particular podcast, let it be that your needs and wishes are incredibly important, and that your needs and wishes are the key to your feeling, your sense of satisfaction. Just to drive this point home, I'm going to read to you an excerpt from my book, The Way of the Satisfied Woman, so that you've got something to think about here. The satisfied woman is one embodying her femininity fully, leaning into her natural polarity, asking the world to revere her womanhood and claim her rightful place anywhere she desires to be. She is the lady who is deeply comfortable with herself and her surroundings because she is completely supported and free to be her wild feminine self, tapped into her creativity and channels it regularly. She is sexually satisfied and able to run pleasure through her body, honors her emotions and intuition as her primary decision-making force. This can be you, satisfied woman. So let that settle in a little. Give it some, not just thought, but some feeling, because that's what the feminine does. The feminine feels, is this right? Is this true for me? Is this good? And follows that intuitive sense of rightness and goodness. And when something is not right and good, the feminine is going to feel it first. And you know this. If you are a feminine woman listening to this podcast, you know that when your intuition strikes and you start to feel that sense of discomfort, like something's not right here, you will not rest. Your body will not be at rest. Your mind will not be at rest. Your heart will not be at rest. And even if it doesn't make sense in the world, that sense of discomfort, that is That is your guiding post, your true north. You've got to follow it. You've got to listen to it in order to find what will bring you comfort, in order to discover what will bring you satisfaction. So if you know something's not quite right, you're gonna figure it out, and you will not be at rest or at peace until you do. That's an inherent quality of femininity. When things are a little bit off, it's the feminine that feels it first and that seeks out change. The feminine is no stranger to change. Our bodies change all the time. We can never just relax in a complacency. We can never be still. The feminine is always moving. And in that movement, in that change, in that discomfort, we're constantly tweaking and recalibrating our sense of satisfaction, rightness, goodness, and trueness for us. The satisfied woman, when she, let's imagine her, and even better, let's imagine ourselves as her. The satisfied woman has certain conditions, and I want all of these for you. I will say that these are all a journey. They will all be in flux here and there. There will be some that will come more easily at times and other qualities that will be more challenging. But take on some of these qualities, take them in, feel them. Feel where you are lacking in some areas and feel where you are shining in some areas. The satisfied woman will be satisfied because she is surrounded by people who love and care for her. Now, not everybody will love and care for us at all times, but hopefully we have people in our lives right now who have love and care and who believe us when we speak, who believe us when we have something to say, who care and love us enough to hear what it is we want to share. That's really important for the feminine. The satisfied woman is comfortable enough in her surroundings to be herself. Now, I know that, especially for young women, that is an incredible challenge. I remember for myself as a teenager, being in my own body was uncomfortable. Being a young woman on my own in college was uncomfortable. Being a young woman on my own in New York City was uncomfortable. Knowing who I was, being comfortable in my skin, feeling safe in my skin was a challenge. But satisfaction happens when we are comfortable enough in our surroundings to be ourselves. So where there is discomfort, how do we create more comfort? How do we create more comfort? One of my most favorite questions actually to ask friends, people that I'm with, colleagues, is, are you comfortable? And then if they say, oh, yeah, because nobody wants to be a bother. Nobody wants to express that, actually I could move this chair a little bit. I ask a follow-up question, which is, how could you be more comfortable? Because then people really have to think, oh, you know what? Maybe I need to adjust my collar a little bit, or maybe I need an extra pillow behind my back, or actually maybe I need to turn the lighting down. Now, look, life is full of discomforts. It is. There's going to be times where we're uncomfortable in a meeting, or the temperature isn't right, or there's a rock in our shoe. That's life. That's life. We're going to have to learn to deal with and manage the discomfort, and often the care in that uncomfortable place comes from the masculine. Whether it's from within ourselves or from external sources, the masculine will want to care for the uncomfortable feminine and try and move the feminine toward comfort. But sometimes we have to suffer a little. I don't recommend suffering and discomfort for very long. And there is great power and satisfaction in finding how you can be more comfortable in any situation that you're in. And calling out your source of discomfort is incredibly feminine. I laugh because, one of the big criticisms of the feminine is often the complaining or the nagging. That's not what this has to be. Calling out our source of discomfort doesn't have to be a complaint, and it doesn't have to be a nag. And those who harp on us for complaining and nagging, they're just not prepared to deal with our discomfort. They're not prepared to alleviate it in any way. They don't They're on a path. The masculine is often on a path and doesn't like to be derailed. And sometimes the feminine's discomfort feels like a derailment. It's not. It's a course correction. We can also position it in a way that doesn't sound like nagging. We can just simply state our needs, and that can be really helpful. In any case, discomfort is real and it's valid, and it shows us where we could actually be more comfortable, and comfort is where satisfaction lies. The satisfied woman is supported in her ideas and free to collaborate and connect. So the feminine has lots of brainstorms. The feminine loves to come up with ideas. That's that kind of energetic, um, you know, creativity is inherently feminine. Now, the masculine will often help to direct it or to give it some guidance. That's the masculine's job. And again, whether that's from within us or from external sources, all fine. But the feminine woman wants to have that creativity, that collaboration, where the ideas are heard, where it helps to foster more well-being. The feminine is the source of life. And it's the source of life whether we're having babies or not. When we feel more alive, we are in the presence of the feminine. So to have ideas is to find ways to feel more alive. You know, yes, we've been doing it this way for a very long time, and this way has always worked, but what if some new ideas made us feel even more alive? If we just changed course a little bit? That's worthwhile for the feminine. The feminine is able to access her creativity without the pressure of time or productivity. This is really important. Now, as feminine women in female bodies, we are governed by time. We are governed by time. We are always going to be asking when. When someone promises us something, we're going to say when. Women are famous for our ultimatums, aren't we? Like, when is this going to happen? I need this done. So it's so refreshing to have these pockets, these moments, this ability to just be creative without the pressure of time, and most importantly, without the pressure of productivity. Productivity is masculine. Productivity wants things done. It wants things achieved. It's a measure of success. I remember owning my business and literally having productivity tools. No space for just creating tools, but productivity tools. Let's produce. What are the metrics? And again, that's valuable. It's valuable in one sense, and it's valuable in business, and people value it highly. I'm not devaluing it. But we also need space for just creative pursuits. And creativity really is born out of not being forced to be productive. I remember when I was starting my business back in 2015, and I had this space for creativity. I created something. I said to a business partner of mine, I wanted to create a training program. And the business partner said, great, let's just have you record it and do it. And I took my own self off and created the curriculum and recorded it and did it. And it took me about a year. And there wasn't a great pressure for it must be done by X date. I was starting to feel my own pressure because I wanted to give birth to that idea. You can't be gestating forever. You have to eventually get that idea, that thing out into the world. But it was really freeing to just be able to create, and I want that for you. And whatever type of creativity feels most nourishing to you and your soul. In intimate relationships, the feminine woman, the satisfied woman, is cherished. Now, let me define cherished for this context. To be cherished means that your emotions and your intuition are prioritized, and you are never left alone in them. So when we are cherished as feminine women, we will be valued for our intuition and emotions. And it will be known that we are the calibration for whether things are good in our environment. And when we feel bad, when we have a bad emotion, and I don't mean a devalued or an unwanted emotion. I mean, something that feels on the spectrum of not great versus there are emotions that feel on the spectrum of great, right? There's lots of emotions. They're all valuable. They're all valid. But when we feel some sense of discomfort, when we're feeling some kind of, not great emotion, some kind of unease, that in an intimate relationship with the masculine, that's going to be so valued that that's what is the recalibration point. It's not dismissed. It's not repressed. It's not pushed off. It's not shoved under the rug. It's not questioned. It's not gaslit. It's not said to be crazy. It's the thing that becomes, okay, sweetheart, beloved of mine, I can see your emotion is this. How can I support you? That's cherishing. Or when the feminine has an intuitive hit, you know what, I don't think it's time to go there. The masculine honors it and says, okay, we won't go there. And we're led in a different direction. It doesn't always have to make sense. And that's the challenge for the masculine counterpart in relationship. And I'll give a quick kind of asterisk C bottom here in relationship in just a second. But that's the masculine's work in relationship, because it's not going to be necessarily logical, and the masculine relies on logic and reason. And intuition and emotion they're just not logical and reasonable. They don't have to be. That's just not their domain. They are in the feminine, and when the feminine is feeling intuitive and emotion, then the masculine will honor that and use logic and reason to maneuver in a direction of comfort, safety, support. So it's a symbiotic relationship between masculine and feminine. And again, this can happen internally within our own self, because as humans, we all have masculine and feminine within us. All of us will lean toward one polarity. We will have one primary polarity. We can call forth either one at any time when it is necessary, because both have incredible attributes that are valuable and essential. Okay, so there's no good or bad. There's no hierarchy here. However, in intimate relationship, regardless of gender, regardless of orientation, because every human has both polarities in them, in intimate relationship with another human, you'll want to have the tension of opposites. You'll want to have one human that is of one polarity primarily, and the other human that is of the other polarity primarily. Okay, you can switch back and forth. There's reasons to do both. Everything under the sun is okay. But we all have a primary polarity, and in intimate relationship, we want to have the tension of opposites. And that's what's going to create a lot of success in relationship. Also, as human beings, we are hardwired for relationship. We actually have more success downregulating our own nervous systems in relationship than we do on our own. And look, I know that this can be challenging to hear, especially as a fiercely independent woman, or let's say a recovering fiercely independent woman in this modern patriarchal world. We are told that we should be able to do everything ourselves, that we should be able to hold all of the things all of the time, be everything for everyone all of the time, and do it all ourselves all the time. I get that that's what's valued here. And I understand that, single life happens. I understand that there are people who prefer to be single. I understand that you will have times of being single. There may be a time that you don't want a relationship. Again, all of that is okay. But even the most staunchly single people at one time or another in their life are going to find themselves in a relationship. You are human. It is inevitable. Even after the worst breakup, you swear off relationship forever. I give it 3 to 6 months and you'll be back looking for a relationship, because it's what being human is. So we can't overlook relationship, and we also can't think that we are supposed to do everything for and with ourselves. It's great that we can. It's good to know that you develop a sense of self-knowledge and independence when you know you can do things for yourself. It's great. It's a great skill. But forever and ever, I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it. So when you find yourself in a relationship, because you will, if you are the feminine woman in the relationship, then you'll want to find a masculine counterpart that cherishes you, that really values your emotion and your intuition. And when it comes up for you, when you feel free and safe to voice what's going on, that masculine counterpart says, yep, I got you. I got you. I hear you. I got you. That's the beauty of the satisfied woman. That's what she's going to feel. She's also safe to radiate pleasure and to feel pleasure. Now, yes, I do talk about pleasure in a sexual context, and the satisfied woman is absolutely sexually satisfied in all of the ways that are most pleasing to her. Again, whatever that is, in the ways that are most pleasing to her, she is sexually satisfied. But pleasure isn't just about our sexuality. It can be about any moment in life that brings us true joy. And when you feel safe to feel pleasure, nothing is more delightful than being in the presence of the feminine when it is feeling pleasure. Whether you are a friend of that feminine, whether you are an intimate partner of that feminine, a family member, when she is in a place of pleasure, when she's safe to feel that, the world feels it. She radiates it. It's a source of life. It's a source of life energy. So we want to make our feminine women happy. I was watching, I don't know what TV program I was watching the other day, and there was a married couple on the program. And, one of the married partners says to the other, happy wife, happy life. And I know that is a trite, age-old trope, that may or may not fit your particular view of relationship. But I like the idea that the feminine counterpart in relationship, if the feminine counterpart is happy, it actually engenders happiness for all. I think that's beautiful. That's a good thing to pin our satisfaction on. And the feminine in its satisfaction is going to be powered and empowered by her emotions and intuition. It is the driver of our successful or our satisfaction in business, in relationship, in life. These are arguably the feminine's most important gifts, and something that I will be diving far more into in future podcasts and in my book, The Way of the Satisfied Woman. This is also what the feminine is most vilified for. If you've ever heard of witches being burned at the stake, it was because of their intuition and their emotion, most fundamentally. And, we have that metaphor still percolating today. Intuition and emotions are, they're vilified, they're repressed, they're questioned. This is where gaslighting comes in. Gaslighting will tell intuition and emotion that it is wrong, that it is untrue, when intuition and emotion for the feminine is the most true thing that she has. And again, we can fact check that with more reason and logic once we have the intuition and emotion. And again, all of these things, all of these qualities are great. But what I want to do is help to really call out and empower for you the sense of intuition and emotion, because it's your greatest gift, my fellow feminine woman, my fellow satisfied sister. And what I want here in this work that I'm doing is to help you pave a pathway toward your own satisfaction. So thank you so much for listening and being a part of this podcast. It's my great privilege to be here with you, and I look forward to speaking with you on the next podcast. And until then, don't hesitate to visit the website, thesatisfiedwoman.com, where you'll find more resources and insights for you on how to walk your way as the satisfied woman.